Yo, what's up?
Hey, we're live. How's it going, everyone? We'll give it a few minutes to let everyone come in, but yeah, just drop a hello, a GM in the chat. And we're gonna just let this fill out for a few more minutes. Excited, Ben?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to add some custom functions before this call, so got to shift some gears and get back into it. I keep breaking stuff.
Yes, Steve. Yeah, we're gonna upload this to YouTube, and we've actually already uploaded our previous live stream to YouTube as well. So we're actually just gonna email you the recording link if you're registered with your email on StreamYard. Lots of familiar names. Nice to see everyone today. Got some people on X watching.
Sweet. Is my keyboard loud?
Little. It's not loud. I think mine's about the same.
Okay.
You hear the click clacks.
Click clack.
I wish I could respond directly to certain comments, but I guess I cannot do that. All right. Give it one more minute and then I'll kick things off.
Cool. Let me get prepared. Oops. Okie dokie. Those are massive files. All right, hold on. Let me.
All right. I'm just going to kick things off here with a short introduction. Hi, my name's Daniel. I'm on the Transient team on marketing and artist relations, and we have Ben Strauss here, who's a co-founder of Transient Labs. Today, we're going to be diving into the Dynamic Art Engine, which is a brand new tool or platform that we built a little over a month ago. So it's still very new. It's in its infancy. And we've been doing a lot of these types of meetings and calls to just get the word out there. More importantly, ideate and brainstorm with creators and help realize their visions. And so what we're going to do today is Ben's going to kick it off with just an overview and a tour of what transient.fun is and what the dynamic art engine is. And then, we're going to go into depth of like the structure of the dynamic art engine. And then we'd love to just answer questions, kind of like as you get questions, I'm going to be here in the comments. Ben's going to be sharing a screen, so he's not going to see the questions. But I'll do my best to answer the questions. And then if I can't answer them, we'll interrupt Ben at some point and get those answered for you guys. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. Feel free to use this chat box. If you're on X, if you comment, I can see it as well. So I can reply to it. But yes, it's meant to be interactive. You're not going to come out of this knowing exactly how to build your vision, but you will have an idea of what's possible and a great kind of foundation and starting point. Like the goal for today is to get your creative juices flowing, as I like to say. Ben, you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. I guess I could start screen sharing right out of the gate.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, we're going to be diving into Dynamic Art Engine. And like Daniel said, it's literally on version 0.75, I think, right now. So still version 0. And right now, what you're going to see here is the engine part of the dynamic art engine platform. And so what's going to be coming in the next few months as we build, and we like to build in public, so we'll probably release it as soon as we can, is like an abstracted layer on top of the engine that will pretty much be like a storefront for all types of, or like a marketplace for all types of dynamic art concepts that you can plug and play and use with your art. The engine itself is where the magic happens, though, and that's like what's underpinning the entire dynamic art engine platform. So that's just a little something. All right.
That's alpha right there, Ben.
Yeah, just a little explainer, I guess. Am I sharing this screen?
Yeah, I can see this screen. I can just add this.
Okay, so you can see this .fun.
Yep. Everyone should be able to see .fun now. If you can't, just let us know.
So yeah, where Dynamic Art Engine lives right now is at .fun. Like I said, we'll always have a portal to Dynamic Art Engine from here, but this is kind of where it's getting its start. And for those who aren't familiar, .fun is this it's like this discovery aggregator for innovative Web3, Web 2.5 apps, both built by the Transient Labs team, which there's 2 in here right now. But we're also going to start aggregating all kinds of really cool Web3 tools, co-builds, things that we didn't even build, but we want to like aggregate into here. And so this will be like a place for all that. So we're just going to launch Dynamic Art Engine here. And the first thing that you'll see when you visit, I've already been here, so my cache is saved, but you'll get prompted with this, this modal that gives you a quick overview of what is the Dynamic Art Engine. And like I said, what we're looking at right now is the engine part of the dynamic art. And it's a visual programming interface for creating creative code. That pretty much means vanilla JavaScript through P5.js, which we use heavily under the hood, is the P5.js library. So if anyone here's ever messed around with P5.js editor, done any generative art, or created or try to create dynamic art, P5.js is a really awesome library that kind of abstracts vanilla JavaScript up like a layer. And so Dynamic Art Engine even abstracts that another layer on top, where we're removing all actual coding, and we're now using a visual programming interface to build creative code. And that means dynamic art, that means generative art, that means dynamic HTML
but
scripts.
Should we maybe, you just mentioned dynamic, interactive, and generative. Do you want to maybe just explain like what some examples of a dynamic artwork would be versus interactive, and then what generative is?
Yeah, sure. So dynamic art falls into 3 categories, at least the way I like to think about it. You have reactive art, which is artwork that just responds to its environment, and that can mean time-based, that can be mathematical calculations like lunar phases. It could be API dependent, so it's looking at ETH prices, weather patterns. That's like reactive art. So it's autonomous, it's doing its own thing, completely independent of user interaction. And then you have interactive art, which is artwork that relies on some type of user interaction, clicking, swiping, all that kind of stuff. And then the third type of dynamic art is more like a smart contract base. So 7160s, Doppelganger, stuff like that, where you can change the metadata. Dynamic Art Engine doesn't deal with like smart contracts because that's just a lot more kind of in the weeds, needs a lot more security auditing. So we're sticking to like the creative coding, the JavaScript, the HTML side of things. So we have interactive and reactive. And then generative art is a whole genre of digital art that uses JavaScript and HTML to create artworks programmatically. So it's like creative coding. So those are like the 2 main art types that this engine handles. But then you can also build really cool creator tooling, because a lot of tools and micro apps operate on HTML. And so you can build that stuff in here. And we've had creators do that. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty limitless. So if we'll just take a quick product tour, because the first thing you'll see, if I just close this out really quick, this is the UI of the engine itself. You kind of get thrown right in. And if I just clear this canvas here, so what we're looking at is we have our workspace, which is what I'm dragging around here. You can size your workspace. You can make it bigger, smaller. This is where all the block magic happens. This is where you're building with your Lego pieces. On the left side, these are our toolbox. So these pop out like shelves, and there's categories, structure, which has anything to do with code structure, events like listener events, or environment. So environment variables that are kind of built into JavaScript. So that's like time-based functions, mouse locations, window sizes, all that kind of stuff. And you can see all that inside here. And then we have rendering, anything to do with visuals. So you can draw images, you can draw shapes, you can mess with colors, you can apply all kinds of cool filters in here. Logic, this is like where some of the program heavy stuff happens, like arrays, logic, if else, loops, for loops, while statements, mathematical functions, and then anything to do with text. And then finally programming. So these are, if you've ever written any scripts, you use variables often. So you can create variables in here. You can use functions. You can create custom functions that you can call on. Random determination, so generating random numbers based on seeds. And then finally, just a custom kind of miscellaneous toolbox where if none of the tools above fit what you're trying to do, you can jump in here and you can actually plug in blocks like this, and you can literally write your own code in here. And if I look in the actual raw code spit out, what it's actually generating, you can see whatever I put in that raw code block gets like injected into the code. So this is a little more advanced, but if you run into something where there's not a block for what you're trying to do, or a specific function that we haven't made a block for, that's where that kind of happens. But I don't want to get ahead of myself here. So let me keep going through the tour here. So that's the toolboxes. It's like your big shelf of Legos. Each one's color coordinated and category organized. We have the workspace, and then over here we have the right side. We've got the output. So this is the canvas. This is where the actual visual output of what you're making is generated from the code. These are all tabs up here. We have recipes, which I'll get into here. This is critical for beginning to use this tool, because we don't expect users to jump in here and be like, I know exactly how to build blocks and stuff. Because, you have to kind of understand coding logic and structure, not syntax necessarily, but you kind of have to understand logic. So that's where these recipes come into play. They're pre-built. So that's really cool. And we'll load some of those in a second. We've got a ton of tutorials. It's all me. So if you've had enough of me, I'm sorry, because that's all me. And then we've got code here. This is the output code that's being generated on here. And you can see this is very reactive. Like if I drag my draw loop or my render loop up above here, it reorganizes that. So this thing is fully responsive. If I were to drag a circle, draw a circle into here, you can see it is just populating the code based on the visual programming that we're doing over here. This is useful just because sometimes it's cool to see what you're doing. If you get stuck or you're kind of curious, you can always copy and paste this stuff, search it up on the internet, throw it to GPT, and kind of feed it what you're doing, and it can help you get through some hurdles. But we thought it was cool to put the output code in its own little modal over here. And then on the bottom, we've just got some quick tools. So adding media, cleaning up blocks. If I hit clean up blocks, it auto centers everything. Clearing my workspace, loading recipes from a file on my computer. So this is useful if you're building your own dynamic art in here and you want to save your progress. You can save that recipe, or you can export your dynamic art for minting. And that just gives you an HTML file that you can take to any platform, any smart contract. It's just an HTML file type, and you can mint that as a token. So let's, I've got an example here, and I just want to show you what I would do if I was a first-time user, because there's all kinds of cool recipes in here. Everything from 24-hour cycle images, things that change based on the time of day, click toggles, slideshows, which is click toggles just with multiple images, secret image reveals where you can enter phrases to unlock certain parts of the image, a piece that changes based on day of the weeks, a video version of 24-hour cycles. We built this one with Fade Maxi. This is a 24-hour crossfade. It's something that she wanted, so we helped her make it, and then saved it as a recipe. Mouse mapped opacity. This is really cool, and I'll just jump into some of these. But let's say I want to make a piece that maps based on mouse position or finger position on a touch screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is probably load in this recipe. So I click on that recipe, and you can see here, it pre-populates the workspace. Immediately, our canvas is now displaying something. Every recipe has a little README, a little how to use card up here. You can collapse this. I'm going to collapse it for now because I'm here to tell you guys. But this is pretty much just like, how do you use this recipe? And then everyone has a feeling adventurous section too, which is like, hey, you want to take it up a level and customize this a little bit? Here's how you might do that. And then every recipe has a tutorial. So you can see here, there's a tutorial here for mouse mapped where I walk through it, kind of like I'm doing right now. So yeah, I load this recipe in, takes 2 images, and every recipe has default images. I just use my photography. So you can kind of get an idea how the recipe works. So if I just come over here and start interacting with the piece, as I move my mouse across the image, it is fully responding to where my mouse is at. And it crossfades between a summer version and a winter version of this scene that's like down the road from my house. And so this is just a really sick dynamic concept. And you can do this on mobile too with your finger. So let's use my own artwork. So I'd come down here to add media. This is going to all change very soon. Right now, we have artists hosting their own images, and we just recommend Panada because it's free and you get like a gigabyte of storage. But once we build that next layer on top, like that dynamic art engine recipe marketplace, we're going to host images and do all the uploading for you. So you just drag and drop your artwork. But for now, you can click on here, create a free account, view the tutorial if you get stuck, but it really is just looks like a Dropbox for Web3. And so I'm going to upload some new images in here. So I'm going to do it via a folder called CB Seasons, Crested Butte. I took one in the winter and one in the fall, or in the summer. So I'm going to upload these, and it doesn't take too long. My files are pretty small too. So I can see that folder's here now. All I want is my CID, the content identifier. Where the hell was I? There we are. And if you get stuck, it tells you here how you structure it. So if it's a single file, it's this plus your CID. If it's a folder upload like I did, it's this plus the CID, and then I just append whatever the file name is inside the folder. So I'm going to do, let's see here. I forget what I called it, but I'm just going to delete all this just so I have this part. I'm going to copy that to both. Let me zoom in so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Oh yeah, by the way, you can fully like zoom out, zoom in, recenter. You can also pinch zoom. It works very much like a Figma or any of those kind of apps. So yeah, I got my CID. I grab that again here. So I paste in my content identifier / the name of the file, which I think I called this one cb-summer.jpg. Then I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Paste that folder content identifier cb-winter.jpg. And there we go. So my images are now loaded in. this piece is like, if this is all I want to do, this piece is done. So it's like this cool crossfade between, and these are real photographs. So like this is taken in the summer, and then I came back and set up in the exact same position for the winter. And so I've got this really sick dynamic artwork that I wouldn't have been able to do before Dynamic Art Engine if I wasn't like a programmer. And all I did was throw my images in here. If I'm done, I can just download this, export it for minting, and I now have an HTML file that I can take to the lab or to any other minting platform that I prefer. I can mint this token. I can also just open it full screen on a Brave browser, on a Samsung TV. It doesn't matter. You can open it and you can interact with the piece as well. So the Dynamic Art Engine is taking all the stuff that we're building here, this raw code, and it's wrapping it in an HTML file and adds some very specific CSS to it, such that no matter what frame size you load it into in here, you can see this piece is always going to, so if like I crunch it way down, it's always going to center itself and fill whatever space that it's given. So that's kind of all done under the hood.
And we had a question about how many assets you can use in this recipe. Could you, in theory, like, add some more assets to it, or is it just
yeah, you definitely, I think that's one of the feeling adventurous parts. So let's see here. So the cool thing about the recipes, by the way, guys and gals, you can do whatever you want. You can pull these blocks apart. You can fully replace any of this. This is nothing set in stone. Like I can completely tear this thing apart, rebuild it, adjust things. And the better you get at this tool, like this is definitely it's a pro creator tool, just like Photoshop or Illustrator. But as you get more comfortable with this, and there's other cool features in here, you can just manipulate any recipe you want and save it as your own version. So you can add, someone took this recipe and made a version where there was 4 images, and I'll just load it in because I think I have it saved on my computer. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, 4 image crossfade. So this photographer, oh my gosh, Daniel, help me. Brain fart.
Jonas.
Jonas
Hangardner.
I want to say Jason for some reason. Yeah, so Jonas, of course, he took that recipe and added 2 more images because he was on top of this mountain and he took 4 photographs as the sun was breaking through clouds. So if I hover on this artwork, you can see it's actually 4 photographs that are cross blending and the light evolves across the landscape. So it's such a sick version of this recipe. And he saved that as his own using this save as file, or exported for minting and then minted it, did like an addition sale in the lab or on transient.xyz. So yeah, you can take any of these recipes and manipulate them. So I want to just show you some more in here. So that was like a mouse mapped opacity, and you could modify it. You could change it so it's vertically mouse mapped. That'd be really easy. I don't know if that's something, maybe that's something worth doing. I'm just going to show you. So if I wanted to change this to be vertical, I don't have to change anything up here. What it's doing is this rendering loop, which runs constantly. That's what the draw loop does. It's clearing the canvas out and then drawing the 2 images, clearing it out, drawing the 2 images, almost like an old school movie with the movie reels. It's like frame by frame, but it's doing it 60 frames a second. So there's 2 images in here, image 1 and image 2. Image 2 is being drawn at a variable opacity, which we start with a value of 0. And you can see I'm setting opacity to be a percentage of my mouse X versus the width of the entire canvas. And that's how it knows, like, oh, if I'm 50%, opacity is going to be 50. So it sets image 2 to 50. Then as I continue more across the canvas, that opacity becomes 1. So I can just be like, let's do Y. Let's make a change on Y. I'm going to rename my X variable to Y. It'll change it everywhere that variable is. Doesn't matter where you rename it. You can rename any of these. It'll change all of the variables that have that same name. And then I don't need mouse X. I now need mouse Y. So I'm going to come to environment. I'm just going to drag mouse Y in here, get another mouse Y and drag it in here. And then canvas width. No, I want canvas height. So I'm going to drag canvas height inside here. And it just replaces these blocks. You can just delete these blocks like you would. There's also sounds to this. I was muted, but I don't know if you can hear this. But if I just snap things and stuff like that.
Yeah, we can't hear them, I don't think.
Okay, so yeah, now that's it. I changed the name to Y just because it's clean. It's like, it does make sense to say set X variable. And then I replaced it with my mouse Y position, and I'm comparing that with canvas height. So now if I move across horizontally, it does nothing. If I start moving up and down, though, now it's fully mapped to my Y position. So that was just a really simple example of how I took this recipe and kind of modified it to make it vertically sensitive or reactive instead of horizontally. You can make it a combination of both and have 4 images that, depending on what quadrant you're in, it'll shift between 4 images. I mean, you can get absolutely carried away with the dynamic art engine. So that's a cool recipe. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in here. Another very simple one is click toggle. Literally just takes 2 images, and when you click it, toggles between the 2. You know, after seeing the other one, this probably isn't that exciting. But it's a pretty core, like, dynamic concept that a lot of people like to use. Slideshow's the same thing, except it uses 4 images, and they don't have to be the same aspect ratio. It'll just fill the frame. And like I said, you just replace your links in here. Secret image reveals, you know, ACK did a piece like this a while ago where you had an original artwork that's called main image, which in this case is just a mosaic of the secret image. And then there's a secret phrase that I set here called build different. I can literally change this to anything I want. We could change it to dynamic art engine. And so if I come in here and I type in DAE and hit enter, it reveals whatever I set as the secret image. So you can do like phrase reveals. You could do multiple phrases, I think. I know Modest did this. And I think Maximilian made one that had 4 secret phrases. So you had a main image, and then you had 4 different varieties you could access with various keywords and stuff. Day of the week. Very simple concept, but it's quite cool to have an artwork that reflects what day of the week it is. I just used AI artwork here, but today's Tuesday, so it's pulling in the Tuesday image. And all of these recipes, like I said, have how to use cards. They also all have question marks next to the blocks that explain what the blocks are doing. Another way you can access it is you just hover over the block and it'll give you a tooltip, and you can read about what each block is doing. And this is how artists are learning. They're loading in recipes, kind of seeing how it's set up. It's like, okay, what is this one? This is a day of the week. So it's like, okay, I have a preload function that loads in images before the script starts. Okay, that makes sense. I could even look at the code here and be like, oh, there's the preload function right there. Defining Sunday through Saturday variables and loading them from my URLs. Cool. Setup function, this runs once. When you're looking at P5.js, setup function is an initializer, so it just runs once at the beginning and then never runs again until you reload the piece. So we're setting up a list or an array of all the days of the week. So it's a length of 7, right? 7 days. We're creating our canvas, which is our draw space, making it window width and height, so it's filling the entire view frame or the iframe. And then I don't need this to run 60 frames a second, so I'm just setting the frame rate to 1 frame per second. So this draw loop only runs once a second. And then I'm setting a variable called current day. And then there's a function called current weekday that literally grabs what day of the week it is. And then I'm setting my image variable to whatever this is. This returns a value of 1 or 0 through 7. So it's like, 0 through 6, 0 being Sunday and 6 being Saturday. And then I'm just saying, okay, out of my list, just grab whatever day it is. Tuesday returns, let's see, 0, 1, 2. So it's going to grab the 3rd, 0, 1, 2, Tuesday out of that list, and then it draws that image. So it's quite that simple for this. And that's just like a good way to kind of learn what the blocks do. And and stuff
I
like
think
that.
that's where a lot of the artists that have been kind of playing in the dynamic art engine start, as you said, right? They start with the recipe, they do it in practice, uploading their images, and then they think about their idea, and they
Yeah,
can
and
modify the
GPT is
recipe.
helpful too if you get stuck. And we're gonna actually have AI co-piloting in here that doesn't actually give you code, but it's going to think in blocks. So it's gonna be an AI co-pilot that you can ask questions. It can see what's on your workspace, and it can actually code in blocks and like populate your workspace with blocks.
Be
So that's like
insane.
a later version thing. So yeah, that's gonna be more advanced. But
There was real quick, just on the last one, you were doing the like click to toggle and the secret keyword phrase, right?
mhm.
Steven had a question here. You know, he complimented the capabilities, but he said he noticed that when he was doing like the click to change or secret phrase, the images seem to degrade in quality in the final file. And he's wondering if he's doing something wrong or if that's, if I haven't seen that before. I don't know if you have been, but I wanted to
Yeah,
just bring
no,
that.
it'll draw the image to whatever size your canvas is. So it's like actually rendering. Your source image doesn't change. So if this is a 4K image, it's going to remain 4K. But if I'm only viewing it on a tiny little window like this, it's going to render the image to fit that frame. So I wonder if you're just viewed very small. I don't know. I've never seen that. There's no reason from the code perspective that an image degradation would happen. So we can always chat after this. But yeah, no one has ever pointed that out before, and I've never seen it. And I've been rendering this, making this stuff for like multiple years now. Yeah, we can always chat later. If you right click and save your image when it's drawn on a small canvas, it will save the size that it's drawn at, not the source image. So if you right click and save it, like, let me just type in the phrase here, build different. So if I right click and save this image, it'll save it as a PNG, but it's only saving this size. That's a common misconception when it comes to just like dynamic code or creative code in general. And you can see here now, if I were to like blow this up, it's pretty pixelated because it's only saving the size that it's being rendered at, not the original source. But if I were to blow this viewing window up and now save it, it'll obviously save it at whatever this dimension is, which is, let's see here. I can grab that really quick. Saving it at 1300 pixels by 1700 pixels. So that's what size the actual saved image would be. Where the original one I know is like 4000 by 5000 pixels. Anyways, yeah, we can always
Yeah,
chat offline.
sounds great. Thanks.
What was I going to do? Oh, I wanted to show one more cool recipe that really branches out. So we've been talking about dynamic art, which is awesome. And I'll show you generative art too. But what I was talking about with like utilitarian use cases, things that aren't necessarily dynamic art, but are just really cool use cases of HTML or dynamic code in general, is something here that I made because frames are, we've done a lot of galleries at Transient Labs, like IRL galleries. And one of the things that constantly happens is we're given like a gallery space and the frames are like mounted on the wall. Like I have a frame over here. See that? And it's mounted vertically. I can't just like simply rotate it. And so we would be in galleries where the artwork we're displaying happens to land on a vertical frame where the artwork itself is like landscape. So then it ends up just taking up a narrow band in the middle with all this blank space on the top and the bottom. And so some of these frames have some software capabilities where they'll auto zoom in or auto crop, but you have no control as a creator what that's going to look like. Also, you lose pixels when you zoom in and you lose resolution. So a really cool recipe in here, and I think I forget what I called it, responsive aspect ratio. So this has nothing to do, like the piece itself is not dynamic. If I'm dragging on it or whatever, it's not doing anything. But I actually created 3 aspect ratios, and I'm going to make this a little smaller so that I can get full vertical, or sorry, full horizontal. But I made 3 versions of this piece, and I do this for Instagram all the time. So the original version of this photograph was landscape, but then that looks horrible on a phone. It doesn't take up a lot of real estate. So I always make like a vertical version where I like squeeze the pixels in, I'll stretch things. It's very like curated. It's not just cropping, it's like very curated resizing to get it into a vertical format. So you can make 3 aspect ratios of your image that look the best or your artwork, and then throw it into this recipe, mint this as a token. And now no matter where I view it, it responds to the environment in which it's being displayed. So if I'm looking at it on a mobile device like this, it's going to pull in the vertical version. Now, as I move my screen, you can see it snaps to the square version now when I hit a certain threshold, because now square looks best because my viewing frame is getting closer and closer to a 1:1 aspect ratio. If I keep going, it'll eventually snap to the landscape, the original version, as my screen gets wider. So this piece or this recipe allows your artwork now to be self-aware of what frame it's being shown on, and then pull in the most optimized aspect ratio for that display purpose. So let me show you something really sick though. If I save this HTML file really quick, and then I'm just going to open it in my browser. So we have like full screen. Let's just pretend like this is a frame. It's reading the aspect ratio, and it knew that this is a wide angle frame, so it pulled in the landscape version. If I were to, as you can see, I'm shrinking this, it snaps to a square. If I were to simulate a mobile device, this is an iPhone 14 Pro, it pulls in the vertical portrait version, so it fills the most real estate. If I rotate my phone, it'll pull in the landscape. And I've done this on my actual phone, but I'm using it to record right now, where I'll be viewing the piece, and as I rotate my phone, you can see the piece like snap into vertical, and you rotate it this way and it auto loads in the landscape. So it's just a really cool it's a really cool recipe that doesn't need dynamic art, bells and whistles. It's just very practical. And so no matter what platform you're viewing it on, it works on platforms too, by the way. I think, let me just pull, that's not the right domain. So let me pull in this piece really quick, because I think I made a, yeah, there it is. So I have an aspect, right? This is Transient Labs. This works on OpenSea. This works on Super Rare. You can see here it pulled in the landscape. If I were to have looked at this on a mobile device, it shows the website, but it pulls in the vertical. If I rotate the phone, pulls in the landscape. If I'm looking at it on an iPad, pulls in the square. So it's responding. I think I made my point clear there, but this is just a really cool a really cool recipe that honestly I don't see any reason why I wouldn't. For me personally, every artwork that I do from here on out that isn't like dynamic, isn't time-based or whatever, is just a static piece of artwork or a video, I'm probably going to use this because it's such a cool way for me to be able to control various aspect ratios. So the way it works is this one's just a 16:9, 9:16, and a 1:1. But you can change these and just put in, if you want to do if your landscape is a 6:4, you literally just put in 6:4 here. And then you put 4:6 here, a 1:1. You can add 2 more. So maybe you have a 1:1, a 6:4, and a 9:16. So you have 5 total versions. And I go through all how to make those modifications in the tutorial for this recipe. You could literally have an artwork that has 5 creator curated aspect ratios for your artwork so that it looks the best at every version, and have one that pulls in 5 different versions depending on what the screen or the viewing environment looks like. So that's just a cool example of how versatile, I guess, Dynamic Art Engine is. And that was just an idea I had while we were setting up a gallery. And so I wrote it in my notebook where I'm like, future dynamic art ideas, and just made a recipe for it. So it's all the way at the bottom here. I need to make one for videos.
This
one works for
this
images.
this
but-
specific recipe, it's not currently there, but it's going to be added soon, right?
I'm in the dev environment. Yeah, I haven't pushed it to product. You can see I'm in the dev build, but I'm going to push this today so that product will have these 3 are the new ones: mouse mapped, video click toggle, and then responsive aspect ratio. And then I need to make a responsive aspect ratio for videos because videos are drawn a bit differently. They're handled a bit differently than images. So the recipes are a little different. That's why you'll notice we have 24-hour cycle images. We have 24-hour cycle videos. We have click toggle, and then we have click toggle videos because they're just handled a bit differently. So I said I'm not going to make creators suffer. So I was like, I'll just make a recipe that's geared towards each file type. And by images, that means PNG, GIFs, JPEGs, and then videos are MP4, .mov, MOV. They work for all those. So if I were to click toggle this, you can see it's playing between 2 videos. So that's just a simple recipe. And this one has like on key press M, I can mute it and unmute it. So if I hit M, but I just turned on the audio and then I turned it back off. So that's all built into here. See, I'm not going to go any more into recipes, but we're going to have, like I said, we're going to have the marketplace that these are going to be discoverable on. We'll have creator recipes that creators build, transient audited recipes, and then we'll just have like hundreds of these. And it's kind of going to be like a community hub where you can search and find all kinds of generative and dynamic art and creative tooling recipes that you can load in and use for your own artwork. Or you can go make your own, which, like I said, you can do anything in here. Just to kind of show you what I mean by that, and I tested the boundaries, pushed the limits of this, and it wasn't even close to the limits. But I made I remade the Atari Asteroids game in the dynamic art engine. So if I click to start here, I can move my ship around. I can shoot these aliens with my bullets, and it keeps score down here on the bottom. My bullets are even rate limited, so you can see I can only shoot 4 at a time, and I have to wait for it to recharge as the bullets go off the screen. So this thing is fully functional. It has levels. That was all built with blocks. So it's not even dynamic art. It's a game. I just built a game. Let me just show you some cool generative art ideas. So this is a cool one where I built this piece that's just literally like follows my mouse and draws circles on the screen that grow at 1 pixel per 60 frames. It's just running 60 frames per second, and each circle is growing by 1 pixel. And I can change all kinds of stuff in here, like the stroke color, the circle opacity. I could make 50%. I could make it a combination of red and green, or blue and green instead of red. And I mean, you can just like get really carried away in here. I could completely remove the color altogether and just have black circles that make really crazy geometric patterns. So very, this is just more of a generative art concept that I was messing around with. Rich Caldwell, if you've seen his Canvas series he's been tweeting about, he built a generative photography tool where he used the dynamic art engine to pull in like hundreds of his images from aerial photography, and then through random determination, kind of like an art blocks project, piece them together into these crazy looking grids and patterns and stuff. So that was a really cool example of like generative photography that he did. But
which after the release should be a recipe, right, Ben? I think we're
I have it.
That, so.
Yeah, I have it in here. It's not a recipe, but it's it's saved in the rich generative photography script. This one's just the shipping containers, but every time I reload this piece, it's reassembling these pieces into new versions of itself. And it's just pulling in these images. And 10% of the time, they're black and white. So there's a black and white filter in here too.
It's awesome.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, if we have any questions, we can take them. I do want to just show you. I'm just going to draw something while we're waiting.
Yeah, if you guys have questions, anyone has a question, please, let's just do kind of like a rapid fire towards the end here. Please drop any and all questions here. And, if you maybe don't feel like sharing your questions, feel free to DM the transient account or DM me personally, and we'll answer your questions.
So right now I'm just loading in an image. So it's not doing anything right now, clearly. I need to draw the image. So there's this block here called draw image at center. Unless I entered this wrong. IPFS, IPFS, la 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 la. Might have deleted it on my account, actually. Oh yeah, that's a folder. That's not an image. What should you? Let's see here. I'm gonna find another image. I'll maybe do this one.
And just to be clear, like Dynamic Art Engine is live and available right now for all of you to go use. Just go to transient.fun and then you'll see Dynamic Art Engine and you can just get started there.
Oops. Let's see here. All right, I just drew an image on here. It took me a while to get the right link. So this is literally just drawing an image, but there's all kinds of cool filters in here too. So like you could do image manipulation where maybe I forget the filters go after the image. I could like grayscale things. You could use this as a tool, and then if you like what you see, you can literally just save it as a file. There's also a save function here too. Export your canvas and save it as like a PNG or a JPEG format. But the cool thing about all these filters is you can make them like interactive or time-based and stuff so that it actually is truly dynamic. So maybe when mouse is clicked, I want to apply a grayscale filter. So I'm going to first just draw my image, but if I click the canvas, it just changes it to black and white. I mean, that's a very simple, silly concept, but there's all kinds of image manipulation things in here. Filters, there's this really cool one called, I made a whole bunch of different types of dithers. So some of them I worked with like artists to get their color palettes, and you can put in any image in here and apply like force things into color dithers. Here's like a TJO version of my artwork. Alien Queen, then the Brian Brinkman, and then all kinds of other random stuff that GPT helped me come up with. It's like, give me something that looks like a heat map, 90s era. This one's fun. I've played around with this block quite a bit. Rustic or vintage poster, like 80s poster. Yeah, you can do all kinds of weird stuff with this. But I don't know. You build anything, and recipes are a good starting point for any of that stuff. And this is just a few. Like I don't even know how many are in here, but it's gonna be a lot.
We're just getting started there with the recipes too. Like this is just kind of ground level.
Yeah, I was trying to think if I'm like forgetting anything. I was working on before the call. This is why I was messing around with function block, but I was gonna make an example recipe. I don't know if I'll make it available because it uses an API, but I could make it a block, I guess could be cool, where you're pulling in ETH prices, for example. And so it'd be a piece of artwork that changes based on the price of ETH or Solana or whatever coin you want.
Yeah, we should probably talk about external dependencies. Someone asked earlier today in the live stream about responding to maybe like on-chain mints. So like linking it to an NFT, or even like you said, linking it to crypto prices. In theory, all of that's possible, right? Just we don't necessarily have the blocks in the Dynamic Art Engine to assist with that.
Yeah, we kind of do. We have random code blocks, so I could literally just make a function called check. I don't know. I'm just gonna do, since I have it already pulled up. I could have a block here called check Solana price, and the raw code. The reason why I have that is so you can take some of these kind of fetch request stuff, which this isn't quite in the format you'd need it to be in, but luckily GPT is our friend. I don't even know if I saved it in here. No, I totally wiped it. But anyways, you can take this kind of code and straight up copy and paste it. And if you look in the code here, we now have all that code inside the function that I just made. There'd be a couple little bit modifications in here that you need to make, which is why I just, would probably make a block for this. But yeah, you just call check Solana price. So I now have a function called check Solana price I can throw into my rendering loop. And it's just going to constantly be checking the price of Solana in this case, and then returning the value into a variable. And then I can set an if statement underneath this, being like, hey, if I need a variable for, we'll call it Solana price. If my Solana price is greater than or equal to, just making stuff up here, $150, do what? Well, if I had a second image here, I could be like draw image 2 at the center. And then I could have a whole bunch of different bins. Like if Solana price goes above 200, draw a certain image, or if it goes less than 150, draw a certain image. So yeah, there's ways to build all this stuff in Dynamic Art Engine as it sits right now. It just requires a little bit of extra, and we're slowly working towards kind of lowering all those technical barriers across the board for everything. But eventually,
there's a risk using APIs, though, right?
Yeah, there's that too. But I was going to say one more thing. When we have the recipe marketplace fully built, and you can just search recipes from transient and from creators, we're going to have, like, we have power users, and there's going to be creators that learn how to use this tool really well, just like you have on anything like Photoshop and Illustrator. And people will probably make really cool recipes and build, pre-built blocks and all that. So all you have to do is pull in their recipe and you can use it. And the cool thing about that is this recipe marketplace is going to work such that if you build stuff in the Dynamic Art Engine like this that changes based on price of ETH, you can list that on the Dynamic Art marketplace, and other creators can mint to unlock that recipe, and you get 100% of the profits from that. So it's like a open mint. So you would create recipes under your profile name. And if you get really good at this tool and you can start coming up with really cool dynamic art concepts, you might have a really awesome storefront that has really cool recipes and become quite a popular creator within the Dynamic Art Engine. And people will just go and mint your recipes to use them for their own artwork. So it's like a whole nother revenue stream for creators who want to learn how to use this tool. We're actually minting dynamic art concepts instead of just minting artwork, which is kind of, I think, a first. Most things that we mint now are artworks or PFPs or NFTs, but this would be like one of the first where you're buying actual tooling for your own creation process. Like you're unlocking recipes that you can now use for your own artwork. So yeah, I'm sure we're going to have all kinds of users building really cool stuff as time moves on. But yeah, you guys are seeing like the actual engine itself where all that building happens. Oh yeah, APIs. That's what we're going to say. Yeah, APIs are a risk to use because they are centralized. And even if you're using Oracle, if you're accessing them from off-chain, like you would with an HTML script with, JPEGs or videos or anything that's too large to put on chain, it still has like a centralized component to it. So APIs are really cool, and we've done them a lot in the past with weather APIs and price APIs. But if CoinGecko, like that's what this uses, you can see the API right here is CoinGecko. If they ever sunset or shut down their API, you're going to have to update the metadata and figure out a new place to go get prices, or just make it static and just update the metadata. So there's risks to using APIs because, you know, they can always go down, and NFTs are supposed to be forever. So people will still use them though because they're cool, as long as you're willing to kind of keep your eye on them. And if they ever go down, kind of upkeep them. But we're going to think bigger on APIs and maybe how to make that a little more robust.
There you go.
But everything in environment, all these are like native to JavaScript. So they're not dependent on some kind of centralized API, which is why I love mathematical based concepts or time based concepts. You can do so many cool things with time. And with math, like you can calculate lunar cycles, hundreds of thousands of years out into the future. So there's really cool stuff you can do with them.
I was about to mention True Drew, who used one mathematical formula for two different concepts. One is for the lunar cycle, so the piece changes with the moon phases. But then he also reused that for a piece that changed with the tides or the lunar tides, right?
Oh, yeah.
So really, yeah, there's a lot that you can do. I think we're still just scratching the surface. I think the responsive aspect ratio is going to be a very popular recipe once we have that in. I'm curious who here is going to be using that, but great job. Thank you for walking us through the dynamic art engine. We've had a lot of kind of comments and questions here in the chat that I've been answering. So just really want to say thank you for joining.
I forget people can't talk on this. I was like, why is it so quiet, dude? Everyone must absolutely hate what's going on.
Yeah, we should do a more like, you know, we can bring speakers up.
Yeah, no, I just forgot that it's silent because I was like, anybody? Any questions? Nothing? Like, I don't know if I'm doing this tool justice, but like this shit is insane. I play this, I like can't stop playing in here all the time. I mean, I pretty much was designated like DAE wizard within our team since I'm just the one in here all the time, building stuff, making blocks. I'm making blocks as we speak. Things that aren't even in product right now. You can now use, this is mind blowing to me, but we now have color modes where you can like not only set RGB, but you can set HSL color modes, which is a whole nother thing. Did I ever, hold on, I want to see if I saved that. Did I save that? Did I not save it? I don't even know. But yeah, I've just been building blocks. Lots and lots of really sick blocks. Is it this one? Where is it? No, it's not. I can't find it. I don't know. It's somewhere. But yeah, I built one that uses HSL color mapping. And then I minted it and then shared it with my team so people could see what it was doing. Oh, is this what it is? Nope. I don't know. I don't know where I saved it. Maybe I didn't. I'm just getting too excited.
No, this is all great. Yeah, and so, you know, as we mentioned, this is V0, and then it is publicly available. You can use this today, right now. Just go to transient.fun, and you'll see the dynamic art engine as one of the apps in there. And you can get started with recipes. It's free to use. You can take the HTML, you can mint it, ideally using the lab, but you can really take it anywhere. But yeah, really excited to see how everyone here uses the dynamic art engine as a tool or as a curation tool, like in the generative projects or for creating dynamic art, or even just adding the responsive aspect ratio to your standard mints, because you could basically retroactively do metadata updates. Let's say you minted a piece, but you really want to use the aspect ratio now. You can do a metadata update on your pieces and update them to be responsive with their aspect ratios.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else, Ben?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's all kinds of blocks in here, so you can get very carried away. I was just looking at what I added. I've added the ability to draw videos like an image, which is kind of mind blowing. Where you're drawing it with frames instead of like a video player. So this is Rebecca Rose's piece. It probably will take forever to load in. Oh, there, it actually didn't. And so instead of this playing, so if I just play it in the normal way, you know, it has the video controls down here. You can pause it, play it. You can scrub the timeline down here, you know, like you would in a normal video. But I also wrote a block here that lets you play this in the same way that you would draw images, but it's one frame at a time. And because of that, I could do things like dropping the opacity of the videos if I had like a different color background, like red, for example, or I don't know, something more red. And I start to drop this down. You can see that red's coming through from the back. So I can now mess with opacity on videos, which is really crazy. But not only that, I can remove clear drawing canvas, and now I can drop opacity, and it'll stack frames. So if I put 15% opacity in here, I get this really crazy effect where it's stacking frames as it almost looks as if I have vision blur or if I'm like drunk in a video game. And so this opens up a whole bunch of crazy things you can do with videos. I mean, yeah, I could put filters on these now too. So I could like throw a black and white filter on my video. And I could throw an invert on here. I could throw dithers on a video and just like some really cool things you could do. But that's like one of the new blocks, which is called draw video. I don't need all this raw code now, actually. So I made a block for it. Draw video at as image at center. So like, I don't know, I'm just always making new blocks to do really cool stuff. And yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate you taking the time to learn something new, right? That's what it's all about. And we're going to keep doing these. I posted a link to the lab webinar that we actually have on Thursday. So if you want to, learn about the lab and that side of the ecosystem, where you actually can use our smart contracts, mint your work, customize mint pages, please join that one. And yeah, we're excited to see you there. But thanks for joining again, Fidel. That's an interesting question. Gyroscope. How about a
gyroscope?
Yeah, gyroscope.
What about a gyroscope?
Just about using it for the input, because he asked a question about like, cameras.
Are you talking about an accelerometer in the phone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, you can tap into accelerometers for devices that have them. There's no block for it, but it's on my list of things to explore. Someone else asked about tapping into like a front-facing video camera. There's certain limitations though that marketplaces implement on iframes. So like anything that's displayed in an iframe. So if you go to OpenSea and you see a little square box where the artwork is, that's called an iframe. It displays videos, images, and HTML and GLB. Those are what's called sandboxed. All iframes on marketplaces are typically sandboxed for security reasons. So it prevents any code running within the iframe from accessing specific parts of a user's device. And one of those, unfortunately, is accelerometers and cameras. And there's ways around it where you can prompt user permissions, but I'll have to dig into that a little bit. So I think it'd be cool to have a piece that maybe does something special on your phone. So.
All right, let's do it. See you guys in a few days, and thanks for joining. Have a good one.
All right, see ya.